The clock on the wall showed 6:30 p.m. when David pushed his cleaning cart through the glass doors of Skyline Tower. The lobby was already emptying out as office workers hurried to catch their trains and buses home. He had been doing this job for almost 3 years now, and he knew the building like the back of his hand. Every floor had its own personality. Every office told a different story. David wasn't supposed to be here forever. At least that's what he told himself every morning when he woke up in his small apartment across town. He was 28 years old and had bigger dreams than mopping floors and emptying trash cans. But life had a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expected them. His father had gotten sick 2 years ago, and someone had to help with the medical bills. His younger sister was in college, and their mother worked double shifts at the diner just to keep everything together. So here he was, pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies through the hallways of one of the city's most expensive office buildings. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady. And if he was being honest with himself, there was something peaceful about the work. When everyone else went home, the building became his. No office politics, no demanding bosses breathing down his neck. Just him, the quiet hum of the air conditioning, and the satisfaction of making everything spotless. The elevator ride to the 15th floor was always the same. David would lean against the back wall and watch the numbers light up one by one. Sometimes he'd think about the people who rode this same elevator during the day, the executives in their expensive suits, the assistants rushing between meetings, the sales teams celebrating their latest deals. They lived in a completely different world from his, even though they shared the same building. Tonight felt different somehow. As the elevator doors opened, David noticed that one of the offices still had its lights on. This wasn't unusual. Some people worked late, especially during busy periods. But this particular office belonged to someone who rarely stayed past regular hours. He had been cleaning her workspace for months now, and she was usually one of the first to leave. Her name was Lisa, and she was the marketing director for the company that took up most of the 15th floor. David knew her name because it was printed on the nameplate outside her door, and because she was one of the few people who actually acknowledged him when their paths crossed. Most employees looked right through him as if he was invisible. Not her, though. She always gave him a polite nod and a genuine smile. David parked his cart outside her office and knocked gently on the door frame. "Sorry to bother you," he said. "I can come back later if you need more time." Lisa looked up from her computer screen and David could see the tiredness in her eyes. Her usually perfect hair was slightly messy, and there were coffee stains on her white blouse. "Oh, hi, David," she said, and he was surprised that she remembered his name. "I'm so sorry. I'm trying to finish this presentation for tomorrow morning. Give me just 10 more minutes?" "Take all the time you need," David replied. "I'll start with the other offices and circle back." As he moved his cart down the hall, David found himself thinking about Lisa. She seemed different from the other executives. Less demanding, more human somehow. He had noticed little things about her over the months. She kept a small plant on her windowsill that she watered religiously every morning. There were pictures of what looked like her family on her desk. An older couple who might be her parents and a golden retriever wearing a birthday hat. She always ate her lunch at her desk while working, usually a salad from the place downstairs. David started his routine in the conference room. He wiped down the long table where important decisions were made every day, emptied the trash cans, and vacuumed the expensive carpet. The work was methodical and calming. Spray, wipe, move to the next surface. It gave him time to think about other things, like the business classes he was taking online at night. His dream was to start his own cleaning company someday, maybe even bid for contracts with buildings like this one. When he finished the conference room, he moved on to the break room. This was always one of the messier areas. Coffee rings on the counters, crumbs in the microwave, and the occasional forgotten lunch turning green in the refrigerator. David didn't mind, though. Everyone deserved a clean space to take a break from their busy day. The individual offices came next. Each one told a story about its occupant. The sales manager's desk was covered with energy drink cans and motivational quotes printed on colorful paper. The accountant kept everything perfectly organized with labeled folders and color-coded files. The human resources director had a collection of stress balls and a small Zen garden made of sand and tiny rocks. David worked efficiently, but carefully. He had learned that people notice when their workspace isn't quite right. A pen moved 2 inches to the left, paper shuffled in the wrong order, a coffee mug facing the wrong direction. It might seem silly to some people, but David understood that these small details mattered. When you spend 8 hours a day in a space, you want it to feel familiar and comfortable. As he made his way back toward Lisa's office, David could see that she was still hunched over her computer. The glow from the screen illuminated her face in the otherwise dark hallway. She was completely focused on whatever she was working on, typing quickly and occasionally stopping to take notes on a yellow legal pad. David had always been curious about what people like Lisa actually did all day. He knew she worked in marketing, but what did that really mean? Did she come up with the commercials he saw on TV? Did she decide what products the company should sell? It seemed like such a different world from his own, where success was measured by how clean you could get a bathroom or how efficiently you could vacuum a carpet. He decided to wait a little longer before finishing her office. Instead, he moved on to the empty cubicles in the main workspace. These belonged to the junior employees, the recent college graduates who were just starting their careers. Their desks were decorated with pictures from spring break trips and inspirational quotes printed from the internet. David remembered being their age and feeling like the whole world was full of possibilities. 20 minutes later, Lisa's office finally went dark. David heard her heels clicking on the tile floor as she walked toward the elevator. "Thank you for waiting," she called out as she passed him. "You're very considerate." David smiled and waved as the elevator doors closed behind her. Then he pushed his cart toward her office to finish his work. As he entered the space, he noticed how different it felt when she wasn't there. The office seemed bigger somehow and quieter. Her presence had filled the room in a way that David hadn't realized until now. He worked carefully around her desk, making sure not to disturb the neat piles of papers and reports. The presentation she had been working on was still open on her computer screen, something about launching a new product line. David couldn't help but admire the colorful charts and graphs she had created. It looked professional and impressive, the kind of work that required real skill and creativity. As David emptied her trash can, he noticed something that made him pause. At the bottom of the bin was a crumpled piece of paper with his name written on it, along with a short note. "Thank you for always keeping my space so clean. It makes such a difference in my day. Lisa." She had written him a thank you note but then thrown it away. David wondered if she had changed her mind about giving it to him, or if she thought it might be inappropriate somehow. Either way, the fact that she had thought to write it at all meant something to him. David finished cleaning her office with extra care that night, making sure every surface was perfect. As he turned off the lights and locked the door behind him, he found himself looking forward to seeing Lisa again tomorrow, even if it was just for a brief moment as their paths crossed in the hallway. The building was completely empty now except for David and the security guard downstairs. As he made his way to the service elevator with his cart, David thought about the note in the trash can and smiled. Maybe tomorrow he would find a way to let Lisa know how much her kindness meant to him. 2 weeks had passed since David found the crumpled thank you note in Lisa's trash can. He hadn't mentioned it to her, but something had shifted between them. Their brief evening encounters had become slightly longer, moving from polite nods to actual conversations. It started small, comments about the weather or how busy the building seemed that day. But gradually they began sharing more personal details about their lives. David learned that Lisa lived alone in a condo downtown with her golden retriever, Max. She had moved to the city 3 years ago for this job, leaving behind her family and friends in a small town 2 hours away. The transition had been harder than she expected, and she sometimes felt lonely despite being surrounded by colleagues all day. Work was demanding, and she often felt pressure to prove herself in a company where most of the senior executives were men who had been there for decades. Lisa discovered that David was taking business classes online while working full-time to support his family. His father was recovering from cancer treatment, and his younger sister was studying to become a teacher. David had put his own dreams on hold to help with medical bills and tuition costs, but he talked about his goals with a quiet determination that impressed her. He wanted to start his own cleaning company eventually, believing that honest work done well was something to be proud of. One Tuesday evening, Lisa was still at her desk when David arrived for his cleaning rounds. She looked frustrated, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. Her computer screen showed a presentation that she kept opening and closing, clearly struggling with something. "Rough day?" David asked as he knocked on her doorframe. Lisa rubbed her temples and sighed. I have to present this marketing strategy to the board tomorrow morning and nothing feels right. I've been working on it for weeks, but every time I think I'm done, I find another problem. David hesitated for a moment, then stepped into her office. Want to talk about it? Sometimes explaining things out loud helps me figure out what's not working. Lisa was surprised by the offer, but found herself nodding. It's this campaign for our new fitness app. I'm trying to show how we can reach younger customers, but the numbers just don't add up the way I want them to. As Lisa explained her presentation, David listened carefully. He asked simple questions that helped her clarify her thinking and offered perspectives she hadn't considered. His experience working multiple jobs to support his family had given him insights into what motivated people to make purchasing decisions. By the time they finished talking, Lisa had identified the weak points in her strategy and knew how to fix them. Thank you, she said as David prepared to start cleaning. You really helped me see this differently. Anytime, David replied. Good luck tomorrow. The next evening, David found a small wrapped box on his cleaning cart with a note attached. Your advice saved my presentation. The board loved it. This is just a small thank you, Lisa. Inside the box was a nice coffee mug with "World's Best Problem Solver" printed on it. David smiled as he read the message. No one had ever called him a problem solver before, but he liked the way it sounded. From that night forward, their relationship began to evolve. Lisa started leaving little notes for David when she had particularly stressful days, thanking him for keeping her workspace organized and peaceful. She noticed that he always arranged her papers neatly when she left them scattered across her desk, and that he took special care of her small plant when it looked droopy. David began paying attention to Lisa's preferences in ways that went beyond basic cleaning. He noticed she preferred her pens arranged in a certain order, so he started organizing them that way. When her plant began to look unhealthy, he researched proper care instructions online and left a printed guide on her desk. He made sure her coffee maker was always spotless and ready for the next morning. One evening in late October, David arrived to find Lisa working late again. This time she wasn't stressed about work. She was looking at photos on her computer and smiling. Family pictures? David asked as he began dusting her bookshelf. My nephew's birthday party last weekend, Lisa said, turning the screen so he could see. He turned 5 and insisted on a superhero theme. My sister sent me all these photos. David looked at the pictures of a little boy in a bright red cape, surrounded by family members wearing masks and colorful costumes. Looks like fun, he said. Do you get to see them often? Lisa's smile faded a little. Not as much as I'd like. It's hard to get away from work and the drive is long. I missed his last birthday because of a client emergency. David could hear the regret in her voice. That must be tough. Family's important. What about you? Lisa asked. Any nieces or nephews? David's face lit up. My sister just found out she's having a baby. She's scared about managing school and a baby. But I keep telling her our family will figure it out together. We always do. Lisa was struck by the way David talked about his family, with such pride and loyalty. She had grown up in a close-knit family too, but her career had gradually pulled her away from those connections. Listening to David talk about supporting his sister made her realize how much she missed being part of something bigger than herself. Their conversations began happening more frequently. Sometimes Lisa would still be working when David arrived, and they would chat while he cleaned around her. Other times she would deliberately stay a few extra minutes when she saw his cart coming down the hall. They talked about everything, their families, their dreams, their favorite movies and books. David learned that Lisa had wanted to be a photographer before getting into marketing. She still took pictures as a hobby, mostly of the city skyline from her apartment balcony. She showed him some of her photos on her phone one evening, and David was amazed by her talent for capturing the beauty in ordinary moments. Lisa discovered that David wrote poetry in his spare time. He was embarrassed to admit it at first, but she convinced him to share a few lines he had written about the city at night. His words painted vivid pictures of the building after hours, when the corporate facade gave way to something more peaceful and real. As November arrived, their friendship had developed a comfortable rhythm. Lisa began bringing in extra coffee in the mornings, leaving it on the security desk with David's name on it. David started leaving small observations about her plant's progress, written on sticky notes that made her smile when she found them. One evening, Lisa noticed that David looked tired. His usual cheerful demeanor seemed forced, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Everything okay?" she asked. David hesitated, then decided to be honest. "My dad had another doctor's appointment today. The bills keep piling up, and my sister needs help with textbooks for next semester. Sometimes I wonder if I'm crazy to think I can actually save enough money to start my own business." Lisa felt a surge of empathy for him. She had grown up with financial security, and sometimes forgot how stressful money problems could be. "You're not crazy," she said firmly. "You're one of the most determined people I've ever met. And you're already running a business, you just happen to be doing it for someone else right now." David looked at her with surprise. "What do you mean?" "Think about it," Lisa said. "You manage your own schedule, you've built relationships with clients, even if they're office workers like me, and you consistently deliver quality service. Those are all business skills. You're closer to your dream than you think." David had never thought about his work that way before. Lisa's perspective made him see his current situation not as a dead end, but as training for something bigger. "Thank you," he said. "I needed to hear that," Lisa smiled. "We all need someone to remind us of our strengths sometimes." As David continued his cleaning routine that night, he felt lighter somehow. Having someone believe in his dreams made them feel more real and achievable. He began to see his daily work not just as a way to pay bills, but as preparation for the future he was building. For Lisa, these conversations with David had become the highlight of her long workdays. In a building full of ambitious people focused on climbing the corporate ladder, David's genuine kindness and optimism stood out. He never made her feel judged for working late or for choosing career over relationships. Instead, he offered a different perspective on success, one that valued loyalty, hard work, and taking care of the people you love. Neither of them realized it yet, but their friendship was slowly changing how they saw themselves and what they wanted from life. In the quiet moments after the office emptied and before the cleaning began, they were discovering that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen in the most unexpected places. December had arrived with its usual chaos of year-end deadlines and holiday preparations. The office building buzzed with extra energy as companies rushed to close deals and finish projects before the holidays. For Lisa, this meant even longer hours and more pressure than usual. The marketing department was launching 3 new campaigns simultaneously, and she felt like she was drowning in responsibilities. David noticed the change immediately. Lisa's office light was on almost every night when he arrived, and she looked increasingly exhausted. Her usually neat desk was covered with papers, empty takeout containers, and multiple coffee cups. The small plant on her windowsill was beginning to droop from neglect, and David could see the stress etched on her face whenever they spoke. One Thursday evening, David found Lisa sitting at her desk with her head in her hands. Her computer screen showed what looked like a budget spreadsheet with numbers highlighted in red. Several crumpled papers littered the floor around her chair, and her normally professional appearance was disheveled. "Hey," David said softly, knocking on the doorframe. "Rough night?" Lisa looked up, and David could see that her eyes were red-rimmed. "I'm sorry, David, I know you need to clean, but I just can't seem to get this budget analysis right. My boss wants it first thing tomorrow morning, and I've been working on it for 6 hours. Instead of his usual response about coming back later, David stepped into the office. "What kind of budget analysis?" Lisa laughed bitterly. "The kind that shows we're spending too much money in all the wrong places. I need to figure out how to cut costs without destroying our marketing effectiveness, but every option seems terrible." David looked at the papers scattered around her desk. "Mind if I take a look? Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes helps." Lisa was about to say no. After all, this was confidential company information and David was just the cleaning guy. But something in his expression stopped her. Over the past few months, she had learned that David was much more thoughtful and intelligent than his job title suggested. And right now she was desperate for any help she could get. "Okay," she said, moving aside so David could see her computer screen. David studied the spreadsheet for several minutes, asking questions about different line items and what they represented. Lisa found herself explaining the company's marketing strategy in detail, something she had never done with anyone outside the department. As she talked, David began to see patterns that she had missed. "What if you're looking at this backwards?" David said finally. What do you mean? You're trying to cut spending, but what if you could increase efficiency instead? Like this line here, you're spending a lot on print advertising, but how do you know it's working? Lisa stared at the screen. We track some metrics, but honestly, it's hard to measure direct impact from print ads. Right, David said. And this digital advertising budget, it's smaller, but you can track exactly how many people click on your ads and buy your products. What if you shifted more money from print to digital? You might actually reach more customers for less money. Lisa felt something click in her brain. She had been so focused on cutting costs that she hadn't considered reallocating them more effectively. David's perspective was exactly what she needed. Someone who understood value and efficiency from a completely different angle. They worked together for the next 2 hours, with Lisa pulling data and David asking practical questions that helped her see new solutions. By the time they finished, Lisa had found a way to reduce overall marketing costs by 15%, while actually improving their reach to target customers. David, you're brilliant, Lisa said as she saved the final version of her analysis. I never would have thought of this approach. David blushed slightly. I just think about things differently, I guess. When you're managing a tight budget at home, you learn to find creative solutions. As David began his cleaning routine, Lisa realized something that made her pause. Over the past few months, she had started looking forward to their conversations more than any other part of her day. David's kindness and wisdom had become a source of comfort in her stressful work life. But tonight, seeing him help her solve a complex business problem, she understood that her feelings were deeper than friendship. David wasn't just the cleaning guy who happened to be nice. He was an intelligent, caring man who saw the world in ways that challenged and inspired her. He had dreams and talents that went far beyond his current job, and somehow, despite all the differences in their backgrounds, they had developed a connection that felt more real than most of her other relationships. The realization both excited and terrified her. Dating someone she worked with was complicated enough, but dating someone from a completely different social and economic background seemed almost impossible. What would her colleagues think? What would her family say? And was she imagining the spark between them, or did David feel it too? Meanwhile, David was having his own moment of clarity. As he emptied trash cans and wiped down surfaces, he couldn't stop thinking about the last 2 hours. Lisa had trusted him with important company information and genuinely valued his input. She didn't see him as just the cleaning guy. She saw him as someone worth listening to. But more than that, David realized he had been falling for Lisa for weeks without fully admitting it to himself. He looked forward to their conversations more than anything else in his day. He found himself thinking about her smile during his business classes and wondering what she was doing on weekends. When she was stressed, he wanted to find ways to help her feel better. When she was happy, her joy was contagious. The problem was, David had no idea if Lisa could ever see him as anything more than a friend. They came from different worlds, had different educations, and moved in completely different social circles. Why would a successful marketing director be interested in someone who cleaned offices for a living? Over the next few days, both Lisa and David found themselves acting slightly differently around each other. Their conversations became more personal, with longer pauses and more meaningful looks. Lisa started staying late more often, even when she didn't have urgent work to finish. David began timing his cleaning routine so that he would be near Lisa's office when she was most likely to still be there. One evening, Lisa was showing David photos from her weekend trip to visit her family. As they leaned over her phone together, looking at pictures of her nephew's school play, their hands accidentally touched. Both of them felt an electric spark, but neither pulled away immediately. He's really talented, David said, though he was more aware of Lisa's closeness than the photos on the screen. He gets it from my sister, Lisa replied, very conscious of how nice David smelled, like clean soap and something uniquely him. They stayed like that for a moment longer than necessary before David finally stepped back to continue his work. But the tension in the room had shifted to something unmistakably romantic. Lisa began noticing things about David that she had overlooked before. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. How gentle his hands were when he arranged things on her desk. the quiet confidence in his voice when he talked about his goals. She realized that somewhere along the way, she had stopped seeing him as an employee of the building and started seeing him as a man she was attracted to. David found himself paying attention to details about Lisa that had nothing to do with cleaning her office. How she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. The way she laughed at his jokes, even the ones that weren't very funny. How her face lit up when she talked about things she cared about. He began to wonder what it would be like to take her to dinner, or to meet her family, or to be part of her life outside these office walls. The breaking point came on a Friday evening in mid-December. Lisa had finished her work early for once and was packing up to leave when David arrived with his cleaning cart. Instead of rushing to catch the elevator as she usually did, she lingered by her desk. "Any big weekend plans?" she asked, though she already knew David typically spent Saturdays visiting his father and Sundays studying. "Actually, I'm going to check out a photography exhibit downtown," David said. "There's this local artist whose work reminds me of the pictures you showed me. I thought you might like his style." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. David had remembered her interest in photography and was thinking about her even when they weren't together. "That sounds wonderful," she said. "I love discovering new artists." David took a deep breath. Would you maybe want to come with me? If you're not busy, I mean." The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Lisa felt a mix of excitement and nervousness that she hadn't experienced in years. This was the moment where their relationship would either move forward or stay safely in the realm of friendship. "I would love to," she said, and David's face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen from him. As they made plans to meet at the gallery on Saturday afternoon, both of them realized that they were about to cross a line that would change everything, but for the first time in months, the risk felt worth taking. That night, as David finished cleaning the building, he couldn't stop smiling. And as Lisa drove home to her empty apartment, she felt more excited about the weekend than she had in years. Neither of them knew exactly what would happen next, but they both knew that something important was beginning. Saturday afternoon at the photography gallery turned out to be everything Lisa had hoped for and more. She and David spent 3 hours wandering through the exhibits, talking about composition and lighting and the stories behind each image. David's insight surprised her. He had a natural eye for art and could explain why certain photographs moved him in ways that matched her own technical knowledge. They grabbed coffee afterward at a small cafe nearby, and their conversation flowed effortlessly from photography to books to dreams for the future. Lisa learned that David had been taking pictures with an old camera his grandfather had given him, capturing moments from his neighborhood that most people overlooked. David discovered that Lisa had once considered leaving marketing to pursue photography full-time, but had been too afraid to take the financial risk. As the afternoon sun faded into evening, neither of them wanted the day to end. They walked through the nearby park, talking and laughing like old friends. For the first time in months, Lisa forgot about work deadlines and office politics. David felt like he was seeing a side of Lisa that her colleagues never got to experience. Relaxed, playful, and genuinely happy. When they finally said goodbye, both of them knew that something fundamental had changed between them. This hadn't been just a friendly outing between coworkers. It had felt like a real date, and both of them had loved every minute of it. The following Monday evening, there was a new energy between them when David arrived for his cleaning rounds. Lisa was still at her desk, but instead of looking stressed about work, she seemed to be waiting for him. "How was the rest of your weekend?" she asked with a smile that made David's heart race. "Good," he said, though the truth was that he had spent most of Sunday thinking about their time together. "What about you?" "I actually took some pictures from my balcony yesterday evening. The sunset was incredible. I kept thinking about what you said at the gallery, about finding beauty in everyday moments." They talked for almost an hour that night, with David cleaning around Lisa's office while they shared stories and jokes. The work became secondary to their conversation, and neither of them minded that the building was staying late to accommodate their growing friendship. Over the next few weeks, their relationship continued to deepen. They began texting each other occasionally, Lisa sending David pictures she had taken, David sharing interesting articles he had found in his business classes. Their evening conversations grew longer and more personal. Lisa told David about her struggles with feeling isolated in the city, and David opened up about his fears of never being able to achieve his dreams. The holiday party for Lisa's company was scheduled for the Friday before Christmas. As the date approached, Lisa found herself wishing she could invite David as her guest. She had attended these events alone for the past 3 years, making polite conversation with colleagues while secretly counting the minutes until she could leave. This year, she kept imagining how much more fun it would be with David there to share the experience. But inviting David to the company party would make their relationship public in a way that felt both exciting and terrifying. Lisa knew that some of her colleagues might not understand or approve of her dating someone who worked in the building's cleaning crew. She had worked hard to establish herself as a serious professional, and she worried about how dating David might affect her reputation. At the same time, Lisa was tired of hiding her feelings. David had become the most important person in her life, and pretending otherwise was exhausting. She found herself caring less about what her colleagues thought and more about being honest about her happiness. The night of the company party, Lisa stayed late at the office to change into her dress and fix her makeup. She had decided to attend the party alone one more time, but she couldn't stop thinking about David. As she was gathering her things to leave, she heard the familiar sound of his cleaning cart in the hallway. David knocked on her doorframe as usual, but stopped short when he saw her dressed up for the evening. "Wow," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "You look beautiful." Lisa felt herself blush. "Thank you. Company holiday party tonight?" "Right," David said, though he looked disappointed. "I hope you have fun." Lisa watched as David began his routine in the neighboring office, and suddenly she couldn't stand the thought of spending another evening making small talk with people who barely knew her, while the person she cared about most was working. "Alone in the building, David," she called out, walking to where he was working. He looked up from the desk he was cleaning. "Yeah?" Lisa took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "This is going to sound crazy, and I know it might be complicated, but would you want to skip the rest of your cleaning tonight and come to this party with me?" David stared at her in surprise. "Are you serious?" "I'm completely serious," Lisa said, though her voice was shaking slightly. "I know it's last minute, and I know it might be weird since you work in the building, but I don't want to go alone anymore. I want to go with you." David set down his cleaning supplies and stepped closer to her. "Lisa, are you sure? I mean, what will your coworkers think?" "Honestly, I don't care anymore," Lisa said, and she realized that she meant it. "I'm tired of pretending that we're just friends. I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you." The words hung in the air between them, finally giving voice to what they had both been feeling for weeks. David reached out and gently took Lisa's hand. "How do you feel about me?" he asked quietly. Lisa looked into his eyes, seeing kindness and hope and something that looked like love. "I think I'm falling for you," she said. "Actually, I know I'm falling for you. I have been for weeks." David's face broke into a smile that was brighter than any Lisa had ever seen. "I was hoping you might say that," he said. "Because I've been falling for you too." They stood there for a moment, holding hands in the empty office building, finally acknowledging what had been building between them for months. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and somewhere in the distance they could hear the elevators moving between floors. But in that moment, the ordinary office space felt like the most romantic place in the world. "So," David said, grinning, "do I need to change clothes for this party?" Lisa laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "You look perfect just the way you are." "Wait," David said, suddenly looking nervous again. "What are you going to tell people when they ask who I am?" Lisa thought for a moment, then smiled. "I'm going to tell them the truth. That you're David, you're incredibly smart and kind, and I'm lucky that you wanted to come with me tonight." David squeezed her hand. "What about the fact that I clean offices for a living?" "What about it?" Lisa said firmly. "You work hard, you're building toward your goals, and you make me happy. Anyone who has a problem with that isn't someone I need in my life." As they walked toward the elevator together, David couldn't believe that this was really happening. 3 hours ago, he had been planning to spend the evening mopping floors and emptying trash cans. Now he was going to a fancy party with the woman he was falling in love with. "Lisa," he said as they waited for the elevator. "Yeah? For the record, I think you're pretty amazing too." The elevator doors opened, and as they stepped inside together, Both Lisa and David knew that they were starting something that would change both of their lives. The corporate holiday party was just the beginning. For the first time in months, they were both exactly where they wanted to be, together, honest about their feelings, and ready to see what came next. As the elevator carried them down to the party, Lisa realized that she had never been more excited about anything in her life. And David, still holding her hand, felt like the luckiest man in the world. The question had been asked and answered. Now came the really exciting part, figuring out what their future would look like together. The company holiday party turned out to be a turning point in ways that neither Lisa nor David had expected. When they walked into the elegantly decorated hotel ballroom together, Lisa felt a moment of nervousness about how her colleagues would react. But David's calm confidence helped steady her nerves, and within minutes, she remembered why she had wanted him there in the first place. David charmed everyone he met. He asked thoughtful questions about people's work, listened genuinely to their answers, and shared stories that made them laugh. When Lisa's boss asked what David did for a living, he answered honestly that he worked in building maintenance while studying business at night. Instead of the awkward reaction Lisa had feared, her boss was impressed by David's work ethic and ambition. "You know," her boss said quietly to Lisa later in the evening, "your friend David has some interesting ideas about customer service. We should have him consult on our client retention strategy." Lisa smiled, feeling proud and vindicated. "He's pretty amazing," she agreed. The real test came when Lisa's colleague Jenny, who was known for her sharp tongue and office gossip, approached them near the end of the evening. "So, Lisa," Jenny said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "how did you and David meet?" Lisa felt David tense slightly beside her, but she kept her voice steady. "We met at work, actually. David has been cleaning our offices for 3 years, and we became friends over the past few months." Jenny's eyebrows shot up. "Oh," she said, clearly fishing for more information. "That's interesting." David stepped forward with a gentle smile. "Lisa's being modest," he said. "She's been incredibly kind to me, and I consider myself lucky to know her. She's one of the most intelligent and caring people I've ever met." Jenny looked between them, seeming to realize that her attempt to create drama had backfired. "Well," she said awkwardly, "that's sweet." After Jenny walked away, Lisa turned to David with admiration. "That was perfect," she said. "You handled that so well." "I've learned that the best way to deal with judgment is to be honest and confident about who you are," David replied. "Besides, I meant every word I said about you." The months that followed were both challenging and wonderful. Lisa and David's relationship faced the usual obstacles of any new romance, complicated by the unique circumstances of how they met. Some of Lisa's colleagues were supportive and welcoming to David, while others remained coolly polite. David's friends and family were initially surprised by his relationship with someone from such a different background, but they quickly warmed to Lisa when they saw how happy she made him. The biggest challenge came from their different schedules and social circles. Lisa's work often involved evening events and weekend conferences, while David's cleaning job required him to work when most people were socializing. They had to be creative about finding time together, often meeting for early morning coffee before Lisa's workday began, or spending quiet Sunday afternoons together when David could take a break from his studies. But they made it work because both of them were committed to building something real together. Lisa began declining work events that weren't essential, prioritizing her relationship over networking opportunities that had once seemed crucial. David rearranged his class schedule so he could have more free time on weekends. They learned to communicate openly about their different backgrounds and the challenges those differences sometimes created. 6 months after the holiday party, David achieved a major milestone. He completed his business degree and was offered a position in the operations department of a mid-sized company across town. The job came with better pay, regular hours, and opportunities for advancement. More importantly, it represented the first step toward his dream of eventually starting his own business. Lisa was incredibly proud of David's achievement, but his new job also meant he would no longer be cleaning her office building. Their daily encounters, which had been the foundation of their relationship, would come to an end. Both of them worried about how this change would affect their connection. "What if we don't see each other as often and we drift apart?" Lisa asked one evening as they walked through the park where they had spent their first unofficial date. David stopped walking and turned to face her. Lisa, do you really think that our relationship is only strong because we see each other at work every day? Lisa thought about the question seriously. Over the past 6 months, their relationship had grown far beyond those evening conversations in her office. They had shared family dinners, weekend adventures, quiet nights watching movies, and long talks about their dreams for the future. David had become her closest friend and confidant, the person she wanted to share both good news and bad news with first. No, she said finally. I think our relationship is strong because we genuinely care about each other and want to build a life together. David smiled and took her hands. Exactly. And now we'll have more time to do that, instead of just stealing moments between cleaning schedules. They were right. David's new job allowed them to have a more normal relationship. They could go to dinner without worrying about David's evening cleaning rounds. They could spend whole weekends together exploring the city or visiting each other's families. Lisa could attend David's graduation ceremony from business school, and David could accompany Lisa to work functions without any awkwardness about his employment status. A year after David's job change, Lisa made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She left her marketing director position to start her own photography business. David's example of pursuing his dreams despite financial risks had inspired her to take a chance on her own passions. She had saved enough money to support herself for the first year, and she had already lined up several clients through her personal network. Are you sure about this? Her former boss asked when she submitted her resignation. You have a great future here. Lisa smiled, thinking about the conversation she had had with David the night before. I'm sure, she said. I've learned that life is too short to spend it doing work that doesn't fulfill you. David was incredibly supportive of Lisa's career change, even though it meant a temporary reduction in their combined income. He had been promoted at his own job and was starting to save money for his eventual business launch. They moved in together to reduce expenses and began planning for a future that included both of their entrepreneurial dreams. The transition wasn't always easy. Lisa struggled with the uncertainty of freelance work, and David sometimes felt pressured to succeed quickly in his new career. But they faced these challenges together, supporting each other through difficult times and celebrating each other's victories. 2 years after they first met, David surprised Lisa with a proposal that perfectly captured their unique love story. He arranged to have access to their old office building one evening, with help from his former supervisor who had become a friend. When Lisa arrived at what she thought was a business meeting, she found David waiting for her in her old office, which he had decorated with candles and photographs they had taken together. This is where it all started, David said as he got down on one knee. This is where I learned that love can happen in the most unexpected places, with the most amazing person. Lisa, will you marry me? Through happy tears, Lisa said yes. As they embraced in the same office where they had shared their first real conversation, both of them marveled at how much their lives had changed since those early evening encounters, their wedding 6 months. Later was a celebration that brought together all the people who had supported their unlikely romance. Lisa's family traveled from their small hometown, and David's relatives filled several tables with laughter and joy. Colleagues from both of their workplaces attended, including several people from the office building where they had met. In her wedding speech, Lisa talked about how David had taught her that true partnership meant supporting each other's dreams, even when those dreams required sacrifice and risk. David spoke about how Lisa had shown him that love sees past surface differences to recognize the person underneath. 3 years later, they had both achieved their entrepreneurial goals. Lisa's photography business was thriving, with a waiting list of clients who appreciated her eye for capturing authentic moments. David had launched his own commercial cleaning company, specializing in small office buildings and providing jobs for people who, like his former self, were working toward bigger dreams. They often joked that they had come full circle. David was back in the cleaning business, and Lisa was still working with businesses to help them succeed. But now they were partners in every sense of the word, building something together that neither of them could have achieved alone. On quiet evenings, when they were both home from their respective businesses, Lisa and David would sometimes talk about those early months when their biggest challenge was finding a few minutes to chat between cleaning duties and late work nights. They both agreed that falling in love had been the easy part. Building a life together with all its complications and compromises and beautiful surprises had been the real adventure. Their story became a source of inspiration for others who felt stuck in circumstances that seemed to limit their possibilities. They proved that love doesn't care about job titles or social status, and that the most meaningful relationships often begin with simple kindness and genuine respect. As they looked toward the future, Lisa and David knew that they would face new challenges and opportunities. But they faced them together, confident in the foundation they had built through honesty, mutual support, and the kind of love that grows stronger with time. Their unexpected beginning had led to the most beautiful love story either of them could have imagined.